Okay. I think we are live. So, welcome
Oh, we're
to.
we're doing this live, huh?
We are absolutely doing this live right
Okay.
here on Inferno Fox Gaming, and I am Fox of Inferno Fox Gaming. And joining me is the fantastic Bobby of the Man Boy Cave YouTube channel. Bobby, thank you so much for joining us here
Yeah, thanks
today.
for having me. It's great to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah, dude, this is going to be a lot of fun because both you and I watched from start to finish the Game Awards last Thursday on what was that, December 12th, and we have thoughts, we have opinions, we have general, um, a lot to say about that, and that's what you're going to get here. So make sure that for fantastic live content, discussions such as this, as well as general other thought-provoking stuff in the Inferno Cast and more. And make sure you like, subscribe, and ring that bell for notification. But also check out Manboy Cave on YouTube for some really fantastic pickups of video games, figures, and a lot more. Before we jump into things, Bobby, is there anything that you want to say before we begin, or any upcoming videos or projects that you want to let us know about?
Uh, I don't think so. I mean, if you're not familiar with my channel, very similar to Fox's, just it's video game centric. Just a lot of pickups. I do want to incorporate more actual discussions and stuff going forward. That's something I'm working on. Just having a lot of fun doing it as a hobby.
Excellent. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy Bobby's content on Manboy Cave. Him and his son. They feature a lot of really great statues, a lot of Persona heavy statues,
Oh
which
yeah.
is fantastic. I mean, the Persona series as a whole is just phenomenal, and it's not like Sega or Atlas merchandise, any of that stuff or anything, but yeah. I have a few Persona statues, mostly focusing on Best Girl Makoto, but for
Third
that
best. Okay.
and more, definitely got to check out Bobby on Manboy Cave's videos. So let's jump right into things about
Yeah.
Jeff Keighley's The Game Awards. One of my overall thoughts on it was that, especially compared to the previous 9 Game Awards, and we're not even going to talk about the Spike TV Bojazz shows that were on before that, it really felt like that it was probably one of the smoothest shows overall. It ended right at 10 p.m. Central. It was just one of those that really felt like he had the most control overall of his show. Um, I was really glad and almost proud of the fact that uh, about 30 or 40 minutes in, he starts, Jeff Keighley talks about the video game industry layoffs
Yeah.
be because as of that time, um, Bobby, what was it like? 20 or 30,000 people have been laid off at over 20 or 30 plus companies since the beginning of 2023 or
It's
something.
it's been despite how much money the game industry has made, it's been a rough couple years for people that actually make the games, which doesn't make any sense to me, but yeah, it's been a lot.
Yeah, so I was really happy and proud to be able to see that. Hey, he's because I felt like that was such a glaring omission to the last Game Awards in 2023. Because at that point, it was like 15,000 or 20,000 individuals were impacted part of the layoffs, and I was working in part of an industry in that industry myself, and I was one of those individuals,
Yeah.
and it just was like, really, you're not going to mention that?
Well, I mean, I think we're still rearing from all the impacts of the post-pandemic and all that kind of stuff. But I think what's important this year when with him doing that, and I said this, I kind of made a small video, just kind of my thoughts leading up to the Game Awards before they aired. I actually have a decent amount of respect for Jeff Keighley. I like who he is as a person, what he's doing. There's valid criticism, but I really do believe that he cares about the industry as a whole. It's something he's passionate about. And I think him bringing light to that subject was really important, and I think it was genuine. I think it was an issue he cared about. And yeah, you don't want to dwell on it because you don't want to bring down the whole like tone or flow of the show. But I thought just the fact that they were willing to acknowledge that was definitely a very valuable moment of the show.
Yeah, and it led to a good bridge to their first ever Game Changer award being given to Amir Sadvat, who he created his own website to be able to sort of create like a larger network of game devs so that he could work to try and find jobs for those that
Did it?
were laid
Yeah.
off. So I thought that was like a class act thing to do, not only by Sadvat, but also Keeley himself for taking the time to recognize that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Another aspect with the show, I thought it was a little cringy back, what was it, like 5 or 6 years ago? I normally don't care for the Muppets, but Statler and Waldorf, the two old guys, I felt like they, especially their second and third appearances, they had some pretty good send-ups to what are normally cringy moments, such as like the long length of the show,
Yeah.
as well as them even poking fun at Jeff Keighley's friendship of
With
Hideo
Hideo.
Kojima.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, dude, I loved Kojima's reaction to, oh, is Kojima
Yeah.
Achilles for whatever he said, and he
Does
looked
he know?
so offended. I loved it.
Yeah, so I'll say I'm a huge Muppet fan actually. I have been since I was a kid. Like growing up in the 80s, that was like the Muppets were amazing back then. They were like edgy but still kid friendly. I actually have a stuffed animal of Kermit. It's one of my favorite characters of all time. It's sitting down here in the game room. One of the few non-game characters allowed in the game room.
Oh.
So seeing them at the Game Awards, like, and they did announce it because I knew they were going to be there. But yeah, having them there was like super great for me. And I will say, like, that's one of the areas of the game show I'm glad they toned down was all the extra fluff.
Hmm.
If they're not going to devote more time to actually having, the game awards announced live, like when he does like the quick recap, like, hey, here's a couple other winners, and then they just move on. Like, if they're not going to honor the actual nominations, then you shouldn't have all the extra little skits and stuff. And I think they were only on there like what, 3 or 4 times?
Yeah, it was only like three times if I remember.
Yeah, which is like the perfect amount. That I thought they were great comedic relief, and the fact that he let them rag on him, like you said, and just I thought that was perfect. It added a nice little flair to the show.
Yeah, and I also appreciated the fact that like they weren't throwing in like these B and C celebrities just to
Yeah,
throw them in. I think the worst one was maybe Snoop Dogg, but I think he had something.
it was fairly short. Yeah, they have a new, I guess, him and his son started a studio, which is fine. But I got to be honest, I could care less about all the celebrity, whatever. Like when Keanu Reeves was on for Cyberpunk, like, what was it, 2 years ago? He had
I
a
think
big
so, yeah.
presence. I mean, that made sense. He was a big part of the game. Okay, fine. And who doesn't love Keanu? But I could care less about celebrity actors or whoever at a game award. Game awards should be the game people. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I totally agree. And like just having I forget who it was last year. I just like standing at the podium and just kind of I think it was Anthony Mackie maybe. And he was just
Yeah, I think I remember that. Yeah.
BSing for like 10 minutes and just like, okay, nothing is happening. Like this is
Yeah.
delaying stuff.
Well, and that's one of the things I feel like they did best this year was they actually gave the winners of the awards like time to give their speech, which they didn't do last year at all. It was like you won, okay, you have 5 seconds to say thank you, and then we are going to push you off the stage. And this year it was like, hey, now we're actually going to let you, the winner, have a couple minutes to shine.
Yeah, and they didn't do a lot of stage announcements, and even still what
Yeah.
they did, they had no like wrap it up music or anything.
No, it was much better. And like you said, starting off, they did such a better job this year of streamlining. I feel like they're starting to really dial in on how to run the show. It is still very long, and I think it would benefit to cut it back even more because you're going to lose a lot of people, even game enthusiasts. How many are going to watch for how long was it? 3 hours?
Yeah, three and a half hours,
But
including
yeah,
the
plus
half
half
hour
an hour for the
pre-show.
pre-show. So, I think they are moving in the right direction. The flow as a whole for the show this year was so much better.
Oh gosh, yeah. Absolutely. In the chat, Iowa Retro Gamer Dad, great channel, puts out a lot of really great videos about collecting culture as a whole and more. He says Muppet Babies was one of his favorite cartoons as a kid, and he also is tired of Snoop Dogg. I'm right th with you with the Muppet Babies thing. I remember watching that, I think when I was like 5 or 6 when that came out, and then yeah, I don't want Storm Rose Sky from the Inferno Cast to hear me say it, but yeah, I'm not that I liked Snoop Dogg back when, like, we're talking like next episode shit in the 90s. Like that was like the era for that kind of music. Like now I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, at least he had some relevance being at the show. They're starting a company, so they're promoting that, and they, announced a category. That's fine. I feel like that was fairly short, if I remember
Yes.
correctly. As long as they're getting up there, doing their thing quickly, and like, hey, I'm Snoop Dogg. I'm at the Game Awards. Here's the nominations for this. Okay, fine. I'm okay with it. I don't really care. It could be anybody announcing the category, but whatever. If that's what they feel is necessary to promote the show, fine.
Yeah, and Iowa adds that he's literally in everything, Dancing with the Stars commercials, NFL. He's essentially Shaq,
He's
but
he's very
like
big right now. Yeah.
yeah, but like unlike Snoop Dogg, Shaq can't rap. Also can't be in good video games either. I mean, anybody who's played Shaq Fu, but um one of the last notes I want to overall point out to was that the orchestra, it's another year where the orchestra itself was excellent,
Oh yeah.
including the Game of the Year preview. Flute Guy never lets us down. I mentioned this before in previous videos, but I saw him live at a Hans Zimmer concert with my father in
Oh cool.
September here in Chicago. He puts in, when that wasn't televised, that same level of spirit and effort in his all of his performances. So it was really good to really good to see that live when I did. Um, but yeah, Bobby, do you have any other notes or thoughts before we start talking trailers?
Specific trailers?
I'll start running through some trailers, but
Okay.
before we do, is there anything that else, because I kind of went through some initial thoughts, but do you have any other initial thoughts before we?
Oh man. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to jump the gun on anything. I was very disappointed that we had no Nintendo, and I'm assuming that's only because they're gearing up for a really big first quarter next year, like the Switch 2 announcement. I'm assuming. And then, whatever's associated with that they didn't want to do anything too early, I'm hoping.
Yeah, so the presence or non-existent presence of Nintendo, they had like a thank you ad, and then they had a commercial.
Yeah.
Interesting too, no presence from Microsoft, nothing really much at all.
Yeah, with no update on I know Expedition 33, which is one of my most hyped games.
Mhm.
It's coming out on everything. Not everything, I guess, not Nintendo, but Microsoft has, I
PS5.
think, a deal to like promote it through Microsoft, but no update on that. Uh, I mean, what else is Microsoft doing except for buying studios and not making games, though? I mean, they're like in a huge funk. So, but
Yeah,
yeah,
and it
for me, it was like the no Nintendo was a huge glaring omission, and I think it's just a weird year for them as a company, and I don't think it had anything to do with the Game Awards.
so
And then,
so oh, go ahead,
the
I'm
other
sorry.
big thing for me personally, this on a very personal level, was no big Atlas involvement, which was disappointing.
So we'll touch on Atlas in a little bit, but I'll touch on Nintendo.
Yeah.
In my mind, I have three reasons why there's no Nintendo, or not as much Nintendo. I definitely agree with what you have said, but I'll kind of add to it. One is Pal World. Jeff Keighley was showing a Pal World expansion.
Oh, so you think they took slight to that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Nintendo's not going to want to play ball with any
Mm.
sort of, because Nintendo is a company to hold a grudge, as Square Enix will tell you, for
Oh yeah.
like 5+ years. Another is the fact that they don't normally have a presence. The last big presence they've had was Sephiroth revealed it for Smash, I think in 22 or 21. Um, beyond that, and then the last thing is Nintendo wasn't really up for any awards. The best thing that they were up for was 3 games for the family
Yeah,
award, and I'm betting they knew they were not in true contention to win that with something like Astrobot,
that's
and then
yeah.
Astrobot comes in and takes that. Um, and Iowa Retro Gamer Dad says Nintendo is a company that will take their ball and go home if you don't do what they want. And he's right.
Yeah.
Like I absolutely agree with that. I love the products that Nintendo makes. I don't love the company. I and
Well, I feel like they have a lot of they just don't adapt to change. They're not modern at all. Like the leadership, they're still run very much the way they were in the 80s and 90s, and they have not changed. I don't think they're going to. I think they feel safe in their bubble and they don't want to, you know, get out of that.
Yeah, and the thought that okay, what do they have to gain to as a Japanese company to present their products at an American show? That
Yeah.
they don't see it that way. They're more focused on their own stuff, and they want to do things their way. And I do maybe I'm being too hard on Nintendo, like because out of all these companies, I'm probably the hardest on them, but I think real the biggest reason is probably what you said. The Switch 2 is coming. It's coming very, very soon.
You
And
would think so at this point, yeah. I mean,
because like
I remember seeing in 2017 people predicting the Switch 2, which has just been, that's stupid.
it is,
And
yeah.
it's been annoying. So I think people are burnt out. But at this point, I mean, come on, the Switch is getting old, and for having a chipset that was pretty much outdated when it came out, I mean, it's about time that we get another system.
Right. So the opposite of Nintendo and Microsoft, Sony had a larger presence. And third party would touch upon briefly, Sega and Capcom did as
Oh
well.
yeah.
Excuse me. And that totally blows away the whole Japanese company not wanting to mix with an American show,
Hmm.
especially with all of the Japanese developers and everything that were actually in the audience, which was great that Keeley was able to secure them to actually attend so that it shows that he's doing a good job of saying yes, this is the video game awards, not the B or C list celebrity appearance awards or
Yeah.
anything like that.
Well,
So
and America, for almost every single Japanese company, we're a larger market than their home market. So I mean, they need to come here and sell games.
yeah, and they need to be able to sell them to the right audience, not do a piss poor job like they did 2 decades ago in the aughts.
Yeah.
But thankfully, I think they've Capcom was the first one to learn from that mistake. As seen with the excellent Resident Evil 7. I feel like that and Monster Hunter World were like the turnaround games for Capcom.
Hmm.
Um, so let's get into some of the individual trailers.
Yeah.
I'm gonna run through a couple of them. Or a few of them, some that are like big names, some that like kind of excited me. The first one, I was super excited to see how this started off, and it started with a freaking bang. 2D Ninja Gaiden being back with
Yeah.
Ninja Gaiden Ragebound, and it really hugs the that whole indie based look, that indie based slant to it. But it works. It just man, it almost made me think like, is this another Messenger game? Like, no, the Sabotage Studios working on something like, no, this was Ninja Gaiden, the real deal.
Yeah, I mean, and those type of games right now are huge. We're going back old school. People want those just fun game experiences. The graphics aren't necessarily as important as just like a good quality game, you know? That and like you said, Messenger is one of those ones that fall into that category that people don't need an over the top game. They want something that's, truncated, direct, where they can just jump in and play. And that I think that fit plus two, I mean, it's Ninja Gaiden. Come on.
Yeah, I'm just hoping it's hard as heck. And like the whole retro coming back thing. I mean, we've seen that with TMNT,
Hmm.
was that Shredder's Revenge, Metroid Dread. And then like the I think there have been 3 Double Dragon games in the last 3 or 4 years, or The third one in the last 3 or 4 years is actually the Double Dragon Revive, which was also shown.
Yeah,
Uh,
that looks great too. That was one of the ones I was most excited about. I love
yes.
a good beat 'em up, so.
Yeah. And one of the nice things is with this indie revolution or yeah, indie revolution really coming through right now. Like we're getting a lot of these, like some of those really great beat 'em ups. 90s handheld gamer, Paul from that channel does some really great recommendations. And one of the ones he recommended, I think, was Fight and Rage or something like that. And I picked that up. I still need to play it, but
Okay.
just some of these beat 'em ups are just so I love seeing them come back, and I feel like it's like Streets of Rage 4 level, and of course Shredder's Revenge.
Hmm.
Love seeing that.
Yeah. I haven't heard that
Um,
one, but Shredder's Revenge, super fun.
oh my gosh.
I love all the River City Girls. I actually play those with my daughter. And just, there's so many good games that fall into that category now that it's great to see like some of the bigger studios taking note of that too.
Absolutely. And I want to know your thoughts about Shadow Labyrinth, which is that weird uh Pac-Man game with the samurai guy. And apparently
Oh,
that's where that crazy Amazon
that,
show Secret Levels based off of.
yeah. So I actually watched the Game Awards on Discord with well, I watched it on the TV, but I was on Discord with a couple of people. We were just discussing it as it was, playing. And when that trailer came on, they're like, "Oh, this can't be Pac-Man." I'm like, "No, you know what this looks like?" Because neither one of them had watched Secret Level yet. I'm like, "This looks like that weird episode of Secret Level." And the whole time I'm like, "That's what I'm getting from it." And you know what? If they're going to evolve Pac-Man, I feel like that's not the wrong decision. They're making it a totally different type, but it still looked like Pac-Man, I guess. To me, it did. So I'm okay. I think it's different enough that I'm excited to try it. Hopefully, it's good, but those trailers are so short, it's hard to tell.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's funny. I'm gonna see if I can share a screen. I'd seen a meme years and years ago that just totally looked like um it was literally a Pac-Man samurai thing. And of course
Mm,
it's not gonna work right, but uh and it just reminded me of that, and that's what the secret level thing is. I'm like, man, that's so great.
yeah, and that Secret Level episode was so weird. But that when you watch the trailer, like, because you never know, right? But I'm watching, I'm like, is this like supposed to be like a Easter egg for that that show or something? Like, I don't know, it was weird.
Man. Also, Turok is back, but as a third person action game.
But once again, I feel like that's one of those ones, and I mean, I played Turok back on the 64. That was back when those games were amazing. You played them. That was like after you'd finished GoldenEye or Perfect Dark or something, you went to Turok. They were super fun, but that was one of those trailers. They didn't show really. Did they show any actual gameplay?
I thought like a couple seconds
Did
of it.
they? Okay, so it's like I don't know. It could be cool, but I don't know enough about it yet to form an opinion. Really.
Yeah,
Do I
just
do I appreciate more Turok? Of course. Who doesn't want to fight dinosaurs? And but it's one of those ones like the cinematic trailers are fun, but I need to see more gameplay before I make a decision.
absolutely. And speaking of fun and exciting, probably one of the most exciting trailers, the seafood developer coming and making a 5v5 arcade style football, or I'm sorry, soccer game called Rematch. How excited of that are we?
Oh, I don't want to upset anyone, but I am not a soccer fan. I have nothing against soccer. To anyone from Europe or anywhere else, even in the States, if you are a soccer fan, that's great. It's an amazing sport. It's just not for me. So that was
Yeah, I can tell like I am a red-blooded American
yeah,
because soccer just even we're calling it soccer. The game isn't even didn't even have the word soccer in the trailer, but
yeah.
we're Americans. We're
We're,
we're gonna call it soccer, and
sorry.
we're good. We're good. Um, Also, this had some hype, but I didn't hype me. The very brief 5 to 10 second teaser for Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, really riding that Shadow the Hedgehog hype. I mean, like I'm seeing Shadow everywhere now. but they're writing that make this new racing game public. I did you get into the Sonic Racing series?
No, and I honestly I've heard good things about them. I've never played them. To me, if I'm gonna play a kart racer, I'm gonna stick with Mario Kart. It just nothing has ever been that good, so I'll just go back and play that.
Yeah, and I think it's a thing where the last one or the last two really more leaned into the fact that hey, this is a racing game. It's not a kart racing game. It's racing. It's like
It's more, yeah, well,
good thing they're doing that because Mario Kart and Mario does that the best.
yeah. And I've heard like the Sonic ones are, closer to being competitive with those than other kart racers. And if they're trying to move into a more like just main racer game. I don't know if that's like the right direction for Sonic. Like people are they're going to want to play like a kart racer or they're going to want to play like a serious racer, right? Where does Sonic fall? I don't know.
Yeah, and then it just begs a question: was Sonic just get the hell out of the cart and
Yeah,
run? You're
run.
faster than all of that.
Yeah.
Um, I know I saw that Sega's Gotoku Studios doing not only a new Virtua Fighter, but that 1915 Japan-based game that it feels like Yakuza or even Lost Judgment like.
There were a couple of callbacks for old franchises that like I feel where people are all of a sudden excited about them that never were before. It was just because it was announced that like Virtua Fighter and the other one big the other big one for me was the Onimusha.
Mhm.
I'm like, it got announced and all these people were like super hyped for it. I'm like, that's weird because I've never heard anyone talk about it. Like these are, they're great franchises for back in the day, but are people actually excited for a new game or just intrigued that it's getting a new game after 20 plus years or whatever it is?
Yeah, it's like it's great that it's riding the hype train, but is that going to lead to like actual sales?
Well, I
Are
don't, yeah,
people
that's a thing. Like, how big are fighting games now? Like, are enough people going to be invested in Virtua Fighter? Because I know Tekken won an award and people still play Smash competitively and a couple other fighters, but how many people how diversified is the fighting community that they're going to play all these different franchises?
Yeah, and I've heard that there's been a somewhat big fighting game renaissance, especially with
There. Okay.
games like Street Fighter 6 and Tekken. It only goes so far. Like it has to be a really well done technical game, and I think SF6 and Tekken do that. I've heard Mortal Kombat 1 apparently hasn't seen like that high level of success due
Hmm.
to just I've heard a little bit of complaints here and there. The Dragon Ball one, Sparking Zero
Oh,
was
yeah.
that was big, huge. It blew up, and then it was like a bottle rocket where the explosion,
Uh,
and then the user base for like the online modes what became like less than 5% what it was the first couple weeks, and that one was it was a victim of its own imbalanced gameplay because I think there was like one or two characters that were like imbalanced, whereas you mentioned Smash Ultimate, I will contend is not only the most balanced of all of the Smash Brothers, but one of the most balanced fighting games in general. I've never seen such a balanced game. Yeah, you got a couple, one or two fighters that are imbalanced on purpose, like Little Mac, but it's a thing where like the fact that you can go to so many different tournaments and not just see I remember the last Smash 4, where everyone was Bayonetta if you wanted to win, or
okay.
Smash 3, everyone was Meta Knight. Like you don't get that with Smash Ultimate, even after the DLC was all said and done.
Yeah.
So
So I got my takeaway is I don't do fighters enough to. I hope it does well. Virtua Fighter's a great old franchise. I remember playing it in the arcade when you have those blocky polygon characters and you're like, this is amazing. You could see all 3D. So I hope it does well.
I do too. I definitely. It's one of those where I'm not as big invested, but it's like
Yeah.
I don't want that to fall on its face because that's one of the retro series, and we never want retro series to fall flat unless it's a cheap cash grab.
Yeah, if it
And
does like if it's all microtransactions or whatever, then I don't care. Otherwise, if they tried to build a solid fighter, I hope they at least reach enough success to discuss the future.
Absolutely. A couple things that I saw some buzz with. I'll run through these a little quickly.
Sure.
Borderlands 4 gameplay. If you're a big Borderlands fan, I know Simbu Darkfang on the Inferno Cast really loves the Borderlands games, so I'm sure he was glued to his. I can't even finish that sentence. He wasn't watching the Game
Oh.
Awards. He doesn't get involved with any of that, but he does like Borderlands. So when I could see myself sending him the trailer and being like, okay, he'll find something to complain about, but then he'll be like, all right, I'll look forward to the game. Um, Last of Us 2 and Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth coming to PC. Clive from Final Fantasy 16 coming to Tekken 8. I was a smidgen, a little bit disappointed that that was the only Final Fantasy
Yeah.
news, but I know as you, with you being an Atlas fan, you were had much more disappointment than me because even with Metaphor making an appearance on a number of games, there was no Atlas, no news from Atlas, which was odd because I want to say Jeff had a trailer for Metaphor at last year's Game Awards, if I'm remembering right.
Oh, I don't remember that, but yeah, for how many different categories that was nominated, there were like, and I wasn't expecting any new announcements with Metaphor, but I know they've had Atlas has had a history with them in the past. I mean, my long holdout, my ultimate hope was a Persona 6 final, at least a teaser.
Yes.
I'm not surprised we didn't get it. That was like kind of my long shot hope, but there's been a lot of talk about them, that mobile game that they have. Is it just Persona X or something?
Oh yeah,
That's
Persona. It's like a different alternate universe of five or something.
something, but supposedly it's getting released with English in North America. And I don't even know if that's something I'll get into or not. But just I'm surprised, like it would have been even just kind of fun just have something announcement with that, or I don't know, anything new, Atlas or but we got nothing, so that was sad. Yeah, for me
Yeah,
it was sad.
yeah, a bit of a bummer.
Yeah.
um, Outer Worlds 2 and Slay the Spire 2 for fans of those. I didn't really get into either, although one of my buddies got into the first Slay the Spire, so wondering if he's excited for that at all.
Yeah, I don't like card games where you have to pull cards to do attacks. I've heard Slay the Spire is really good. The Outer Wilds is on my list of games to play, and I heard it's not that long. So I really hope I get to the first one because I've heard really good things. It's just one of those ones that I don't know if I'll connect with it as much as other people. So
Yeah. And then one of the games that Jamie Alls and I were both really excited for was that Joseph Ferris Split Fiction. He of course was one of the creators and heads of It Takes
it takes
Two.
two. Yeah.
So that was a really good game. Jamie Alls and I stopped right before the traumatizing elephant scene. Um, for that game, but this one looks great in that it's like half sci-fi, half fantasy. I watched after we watched the trailer, I told Jamie, I was like, okay, I'm gonna be controlling Mio, because I thought that she was a cool looking character, and Jamie I was just like, yeah, that works because I prefer fantasy stuff, and
There you
I
go.
like the way Zoe looked. I'm
Okay.
like, okay.
Yeah, that's one of those ones because I'm assuming you have to have two players, just like It Takes Two, right?
Yep.
So that's one of those ones, like if it had the online functionality where if you could play with somebody online, I would be more interested in it.
And I think it does because It Takes Two has that, and
Oh,
it's
it
a
does. Okay.
thing like if you have a friend, you just need one copy, and you just connect with a friend,
Oh,
and
nice. Okay.
they can just play off of your copy some way somehow.
That's cool.
I know that it looks like this one's going to be the same way. So like, if it's anything as good as the game winner of the year 2021, It Takes Two, we're going to be in good shape, I think. Also, they that one of the cringe moments with the Game Awards, surprisingly, one of the few was that introduction with Aaron Paul and Laura Bailey, where they're like trying to riff off of each other, where Aaron's like, oh my gosh, it's Lauren Bailey, all this and that, and she's trying to act all cool and like, oh, who are you? I'm like, okay, come on, guys. The whole like nerdy guy is to whatever for the hot chick. Come on, like let's that's been done to death.
See,
And
this is where I think my age is gonna show because I didn't even know who that was. Like, I'm like, who's this chick on stage? And I think when they were doing that whole thing, We weren't even listening. We were just talking in the background.
Good.
So I don't know.
I'm glad that you missed that cringeworthy talk because I sat through the whole thing.
Yeah.
So obviously Aaron Paul, Breaking Bad, but Laura Bailey does a number of voices for video games.
Oh,
They
nice. Okay.
introduced that cartoony star-studded game Dispatch. Um, I don't have a lot of memory about it.
Yeah, I don't even remember it.
Yeah, so like I just think I was kind of like this the whole time
Yeah.
during their dialogue that I must have tuned it out. It was funny. I wanted to mention to see if you had the sort of same recollection, which thankfully you did, and you talked through that awful part.
Just
Um,
didn't care about it.
so we're starting to get down to only a couple of trailers left. Mafia: The Old Country. I never really played any of the Mafia
Yeah.
games. Um, Also, Elden Ring's Night Rain as a standalone co-op title. Did you get into Elden Ring, Bobby?
So I beat Elden Ring, and by when I say I beat it, I had my friends carry me through the tough fights. I'm terrible at all those Dark Souls games. I don't play them. I actually streamed a couple years ago when I started YouTube, I streamed Bloodborne, and I am horrible at it. And if it a couple of people have asked me to do it again just because it's fun to watch how bad I am. So someday I'll do that again. But what was nice about Elden Ring is you could, if you had a hard time, you could leave and go somewhere else and let power up a little bit and then go back and do the fight and it would be easier. But even still, there were a couple boss fights I would try enough times where I'm like, okay, I'd get on, get on and be like, okay, you guys need to sign on because I need you to come kill this for me. So there were like three or four, including the final boss that I needed a few friends to jump on and to beat it for me.
And now it looks like the bosses are made for these co-op battles to where it's literally like you have to have somebody fight with you, otherwise you're not going to be able to beat it on your own.
I think it's supposed to be this one. I think it's supposed to be focused for co-op, right?
Yep.
And I know they're bringing bosses back from other Souls games, and it's
Oh.
I don't know. It could be fun. I'm not going to play it. I don't need that kind of stress in my life.
It's like, dude, I'm in my 40s now. I don't
Yeah,
need that kind of anxiety. Like,
that's one of those ones I will absolutely enjoy watching somebody else stream, and I will be in totally on board for that. I really do appreciate those games. They're amazing games. I'm just not the person to play them.
yeah, I've tried. I've
Yeah,
tried Dark Souls two or
no,
three times, Elden Rings two or three times. Like I like Elden Ring especially. I know it's a good game. It's just it hasn't rung the bell for me.
it's
Ah,
yeah. At a certain point, it's like the whole time playing Elden Ring, even though I got to the end, it wasn't. It was there. It's an amazing game, but I question how much fun I had because I was nervous and tense the entire time, like stay on the edge, like I'm just never relaxed. I remember like after being a couple of bosses, like just kind of like decompressing a little bit, and I'm like, oh my God, my whole body hurts from like being like so rigid. So yeah, no, I will watch someone else play that game.
gosh, I don't blame you. And for me, it kind of felt like so little reward for so much time I'm investing.
Yeah,
Also, CD Projekt Red's The Witcher 4 announced with Ciri as the main protagonist. I haven't gotten into the Witcher series. It's one of those that like I know it's a good series. I just haven't had the time.
yeah, that's it's on my backlog. My wife is a huge Henry Cavill fan, so that's one of the very few shows she was willing to watch with me. And because of that, she bought me Witcher 3. I still haven't played it, but I own it. So yeah, that's one of those ones like it could be great. It's CD Projekt Red, and I think the last couple of years, obviously a huge blemish with all of everything that happened with Cyberpunk, but I think overall, I mean, it's a great studio. I hope they just really learn from what happened and they finish completely the game before they try to release it.
Absolutely, because I've heard that they've literally only just started production, so it could be another 4 years before we even see the Witcher
That
4.
that's fine. Just do it right.
I was surprised to see Okami 2 had been announced and returned, especially the return of Hideki Kamiya to Capcom. At least it sounds like they're going to be Capcom's going to be leasing the Okami Series to his new studio. I forget the name of it, but it's exciting if you're an Okami fan. But that's one of those games that's like like a cult classic,
Yeah.
cult favorite.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean
So
it came out in the Wii PS2 era, and I know it's gotten a couple HD remasters on oh my God, was it even PS4 or just PS3? I mean I know it's gotten, you know, subsequent releases, but I will see. I mean we'll see. I don't know. That's
yeah.
one of those ones I really don't want to form an opinion on until I actually get to see more of the game.
Yeah, it was a cool introduction where they got the orchestra involved
Oh
and
yeah.
the colors were pretty, so
And that's all great, but I need gameplay.
exactly. And then their last trailer was the new Naughty Dog IP, that Intergalactic Heretic Prophet. Um, Graphics wise, I thought it looked good. It was a good, nice homage to, it really felt like a homage to like 80s culture. And after thinking about that, like, cause there's a lot of 80s stuff, like even a little bit of Akira. I think like the CD thing too with that, and then the music. And what worried me after thinking about it after the fact, was talking with a couple buddies, was like, it feels very Guardians of the Galaxy in that way, where Guardians was like, oh, here's 60s and 70s music. Okay, here's this sci-fi thing with spaceships, and here's the whole like 80s and almost 90s tone.
Yeah.
It's like, are we getting another like, oh, here's a way out there sci-fi property, but to make you feel at home, here's some music from what you grew up with, and therefore you can get attached to it.
Yeah, I mean it's super fun to see when they use the old tech and sci-fi stuff, playing CDs on multi CD player and the old anime on the TV. That stuff's fun and it's nostalgic, but they did such a huge job trying to hype that game up, and then they showed the little bit of gameplay we saw was just kind of like, okay, we've seen this before. This doesn't look like anything new, you know? And it's like you're a bounty hunter, like tracking. That's not a new concept, and I don't know if it's a fun game. Who knows? That's one of those ones. I'll try to keep an open mind, but it didn't really do anything to hook me.
Yeah, and
Except
like,
for you know what, the spaceship looked awesome.
yeah,
Like
it's
I'm like,
Porsche.
oh, that's a cool space. I want to hang out on that spaceship.
It was a Porsche spaceship.
A Porsche,
Y-
yeah,
Yep,
yeah,
maybe having that 80s style logo too.
yeah, yeah.
So
So that was fun, but I mean, otherwise, it, who knows what's going to happen with that game? Maybe there's a lot of new features that they just weren't able to show or whatever. But from what we got, I just felt like it was a lot of hype for what looks like a almost paint by numbers type experience we've had before.
yeah, and the thought that like, Naughty Dog's, their last two big series, Uncharted and Last of Us, they were like movie-based experiences, and the idea that you would have a sci-fi experience that is essentially a long hallway. That's what these movie-based games are,
Yeah,
long hallways.
yeah,
When had Starfield and Mass Effect and stuff like that, where, okay, you can have some exploration and do all the stuff, and like No Man's Sky even. And okay, imagine you're in space, but now itty bitty hallway in space. Like, I don't know how well that's going to resonate with people. So like that, thinking about that now, that kind of concerns me.
yeah. I mean, and that's if that's what it ends up being, I don't think it's gonna generate much interest. So I think we'll have to see and wait and see when we get more gameplay features what the game actually entails.
Yeah, absolutely. So these trailers and everything overall, if I had to give it a rating, for me personally, if I was attached to everything, I'd probably say B minus. But for general hype level and like what could cause excitement, I'd probably say like a B plus or A minus, just because there was sort of that something for everybody kind of thing, with
Okay.
the exception of JRPGs and Nintendo.
Yeah,
Would
I mean, like we started off, I think this is for sure the best run, smoothest show they've had. I feel, after 10 years now, they're really starting to understand what they need to include, what they don't need to include, and how fast to run every part of it. Seems like it's getting smoother. So I did really appreciate that aspect of the show, but I gotta say, if the games themselves this year and the announcements were just kind of lackluster. For me, the biggest two were Ninja Gaiden and Double Dragon, and those aren't even major games, I would say. So I don't I like man, giving it a score if I said C, I feel is harsh, but I feel the award show itself is an A because they ran it so well.
Mhm.
But in terms of the announcements, trailers, it was just it was middle for me.
No, that's fair.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And regarding the award winners, we won't run through everything because like there's not enough time, and I've got games to play. You got
Yeah.
games to play. A couple of little highlights.
Yeah.
Game of the year, of course, was to Astrobot. It was really a big winner. Also got best game direction, action adventure, and family game.
Yeah, very
So,
surprising for me.
did you end up playing that?
Yeah, I love that game. Until I played Metaphor, that was my game of the year. I thought it was for a platformer, the level design was amazing. I loved all the homage to other PlayStation, but it wasn't over the top. It was just every aspect of that game. It respected your time. It was just meant to be a celebration of platformers. And they did such a good job. And I really wish Sony would, I know they won't, but I wish they would look at the success of that and be like, hey, maybe we should just make more good games. I don't think that's going to happen, but um, I loved it. And there's still free DLC coming out soon, isn't there?
Yeah, I believe so.
So that's
And
one of those
even
few games that I will actually go back and do the DLC just because I loved it so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard the design and everything on that was just so good.
Oh
And
yeah. Well,
man,
and the abilities that you get in each level, some were better than others. Obviously, people are going to have more fun with different abilities, but they integrated them all so well in each level. It just made it so much more fun. It was just like it really was an amazing game that everyone should play. And it's not super long, even better, because for people that are busy and don't have a ton of time, it was just like an all-around perfect game.
yeah, that's awesome. Sort of that. And I loved the acceptance speech where the creators they were actually afraid of saying Nintendo's name,
Yeah.
but they gave a huge shout out to the first Super Mario Brothers as the OG platforming game that sort of set the standard. So I thought that was a class act thing to do, and
Oh
I'm
yeah.
wondering what sort of repercussions Team Asobi's going to have. But I'm sure that they're like, we know we're not going to do another one of these. We know how Sony is, so
Yeah.
we're just going to say
They're
it.
gonna get closed down after this. Come on.
Yeah. And you had also mentioned Metaphor is your game of the year. That won pretty well, did pretty big,
Yeah, it did
getting
good. Yeah.
best art direction, narrative, and RPG.
Hmm.
Funny that won over Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which only got best score in music. Um, did you play Rebirth at all?
No, I'm not a huge fan of Final Fantasy switching to action based. So I'm not saying that I'm not boycotting them necessarily. I'm just waiting, especially too with remake and then now rebirth, right? And there's going to be a third part. I almost kind of just want to wait until it's all said and done so I can play them all and together. Because if I play one of them now and that another one doesn't come out for 2 years, my brain is old and dumb. I'm gonna forget everything. But I'm just gonna wait until I can do it all as one experience.
Yeah, do that. Do yourself a favor, please do that. I played Remake and then Rebirth of right when they came out,
Yeah.
and Rebirth it was my game of the year up until the last hour or so of the game.
Oh, really?
I'm not gonna spoil anything.
Okay.
But the last hour, um, so yeah, I was really glad to see that Metaphor won Best RPG. I haven't played Metaphor yet, and I don't own it, but it is like the top of my list for like the Christmas gifts.
Yeah.
I've got my family, my in-laws actually, they do an awesome job with like Christmas and stuff like that every year,
Nice.
and
Okay.
I put that on the top of the list because I know that they're going to deliver. So
Yeah. So from me for on a personal level, being a huge Atlas slash Persona fan, I was basically it isn't Persona, but it is. But Persona set in a fantasy world. I was super hyped for it, and my biggest worry is that I'd get so hyped and it just wouldn't live up to the my expectations, and it in a lot of ways exceeded them. It's such
oh,
a good
nice.
RPG. The world building they did, the storytelling is just amazing, and I love the characters. So you know, it's for me it was like, oh, yeah, and you could tell even just playing the demo, by the time you get through the demo, 6 hours, you're like, okay, this is a great game. I'm sold. I'm in.
Awesome. Yeah, and I did Persona 3 Reload the beginning of this year, my
Yeah.
first time ever doing the Persona 3, and
Okay.
like, man, what a great experience.
It was good. Still, it's not up to four, 4 or 5, but okay.
I love how they Persona 5-ified everything too. So it was good to have a little bit of the not refinement, but sort of streamlining with that.
Oh yeah, they've learned a lot. Oh yeah.
Man, so good. So Black Myth Wukong won Best Action Game and Player's Voice, including Wuthering Waves, Genshin Impact, Zenless Zone Zero, and then the Elden Ring Shadows of the Erd Tree. So it just shows Player's Voice. They're gonna pick the mobile gotcha crap and then the DLC.
Yeah.
I think it was a miracle that the Chinese game, the self-owned Chinese game, won that Player's Voice category.
That and one of the guys I watched the show with, a friend of mine, it's another Fox, Emperor Fox on YouTube. He was just going off on that. He's like, this is the stupidest category. He's like, what voices are they picking? And I'm assuming that voting happens worldwide, right?
Yep.
So that I'm like, you're getting, how many billions of people from China
And
voting
like the
for
Chinese
the
bot farms.
yeah, yeah.
That's probably why Black Myth Wukong won anyway.
I mean, of all the choices, it was the best one. So
Yeah. And then interesting, the Elden Ring DLC nominated for Game of the Year, and that being
that
a
was
whole
the big
thing.
controversy this year. Yep.
And it had five, like I said, five total nominations, won no awards.
Yeah, and if it did win, okay, fine. No problem with that, but I don't really feel like it unless it was nominated for ongoing game and competing against whatever else was I didn't even pay attention to that category. Fortnite, Apex, Call of Duty, whatever else was on there. If it was nominated for that, okay, fine. But I feel like that's where it should have begun and ended.
Absolutely. And then last note with Balatro winning best mobile game, best and debut indie game, so like three total. Good for that. I actually started
Yeah.
playing Balatro at the beginning of this month,
Oh, you
and
did? Okay.
really fell down the Balatro hole. Like, oh my God, when they say it's addictive, it is addictive.
It is? Okay.
So good, but like I started last month. I reached a point where I'm like, you know what? If I do another run, I can't tell. I think I'm getting bored with doing a run. So I'm like, okay. And I bought it for the Switch, a physical copy. I popped that sucker out of my Switch and put the case away. I'm like, I'm not just gonna play a game just to play a game out of habit. Only gonna play games for fun.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the way to go. Any other thoughts in regards to the award winning themselves, Bobby?
To the actual games that won?
Yeah, to the actual awards.
No, I mean, I'm just like any game that's good that isn't like a, microtransaction hellscape that actually wins. More power to them. I hope they all do well. I think the game industry is somewhat toxic in a lot of ways. And the people that make these games are really, pouring their heart and souls into it for sometimes years. So if it's, I'm happy for them. I hope all their games do well. I don't put that much stock into the game awards. I literally just watch it to get excited for new announcements. The awards themselves really aren't that important to me.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you too. It's fun for like seeing what does what, and we at the Inferno Cast do a prediction thing. Like we just did a prediction episode I think it was last week Tuesday. So once the awards were over and I tallied up the score, it was fun notifying the winner of uh the predictions that we did, of which we're going to announce at the beginning of our next episode on
Nice.
Tuesday.
Okay.
So the hint is one of the hints is that I won again, but I don't win because it's my contest.
Okay.
So somebody else actually tied with me.
Okay.
Um, so I'll definitely announce whom that's going to be at there. So make
I'll
sure
look forward
that
to watching that. That'll be fun.
Yeah, and for all of our listeners and everything. So don't really have and too much other thoughts. One of the more well-run shows, one of the best that I've seen in a while.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, any other parting shots or anything, Bobby?
Oh, I love talking video games. So I really appreciate you reaching out and asking me to do this. This was just fun to hang out for a while and do it.
The only problem though is I might reach out to you again for another one of these. So be ready as my poor victims, Feral Inferno and Rad Bash Gaming know. I bug them and I bug them often for stuff. So you got to be careful because I might put you in that rotation.
You know where to find me.
Absolutely. And then, of course, a huge thank you not only to Bobby of the Manboy Cave. We're going to have links not only to his channel, but also to his pre-thoughts of the Game Awards show video that he did, again, in the description below. So make sure you check that out. And yeah, they thank you as well for